Morning, everyone. I just thought I'd give a quick review in case anyone is curious. I'm in a 2014 Ram 1500 with the V6 Pentastar engine, and I wanted to give a review because I see a bunch of reviews on a whole bunch of kinds of trucks. There's not much information though on these Pentastars. There's a few, but not a whole lot relative to the other ones, and so I thought it'd just be kind of fun to give this out there. But anyways, I've had this truck for about a year and a half. I got it last February. Again, it's 2014. I bought it with 167,000 miles. It's a lot of miles to buy a car with. I got a decent deal on it, and I wanted to go over like what I've done on it, what I've worked on it, what I've noticed wear and tear, the lack of maintenance that was here that caught up to me from the previous owners. I think it had 2 owners, and so yeah, I think that when I first got it, I didn't notice anything wrong, and I know the one thing that had happened when I bought it, which frustrated the hell out of me, was the day after I got it, it overheated and blew a gasket. And so I started learning more about the engine, obviously, as I've owned it. And as far as the drivetrain or the powertrain, the engine itself, and the transmission, everything is pretty solid. I think there's just a few cheap parts that were manufactured, that were made from the factory that they sent out with the truck. And this goes for a lot of Rams or like Chrysler and stuff like that, Jeeps. But this engine, the Pentastar, the things I've noticed mainly that have been cheap and that I've had to actually replace is, one, the oil filter housing, and that's a pretty common one from what I've noticed. The oil filter housing, the thermostat, I actually have yet to change that. I ordered an aluminum one, but it came in, it wasn't the right one, so I'm waiting on another one. But oil filter housing, thermostat, because both of those are plastic from factory, and the rocker arms. Those, when I got the truck, it already had that tick. Luckily, it was just a rocker arm. It gets a little play in the middle of the rocker, and so it's nothing detrimental, but it is just a nasty, annoying, ugly noise. So I went a long time without replacing the rocker, and I finally did. And there's 2 more that were going out, and I replaced those 2, and then I have another one that's ticking again right now. And I should mention, I have right now, I'm reading 209,826 miles. 209,826 miles. And it's honestly still holding up pretty good. I've maintained it regularly myself from when I've had it. Brakes, oil, I did my transmission fluid. Still shifts good, still got good power. I do have a knock sensor code at the moment. I don't know if that went bad from the filter housing. I had replaced them when I replaced the filter housing, so I don't know why the code is back. I've done a bunch of testing on it, and I can't really figure out what else the issue is, so I'm gonna replace them. They're pretty cheap, so I'll replace them and see if that does anything. I just don't know what the cause is, but I'll have to look into it more. But honestly, this truck is pretty solid, and for a V6, I'm actually on my way right now. I'm gonna go tow a friend. Her car broke down. She has a Kia, and it was kind of a small car, or a low car I should say, and it seemed like she hit some dirt road and some bumps. When she hit down, it poked a hole in her oil pan, and all her oil drained out, and yeah, it was pretty much trashed. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. The towing in here is okay. I haven't towed a lot of heavy stuff. The most I've towed is 2,500 to 3,000 pounds. I'm not I don't do a lot of work that requires it. When I did tow, it was a camper and some luggage and stuff, it was nothing crazy. And this truck did just fine, actually. I was actually very impressed with how it did it, considering it's a V6. I think it's rated for about 6,000 to 7,000 pounds. And it did pretty damn great, I have to say. So, but I love this truck. And so I've had a lot of work done on it. I mean, I've done it. My old man, too, has helped me out. I can name a huge list of things that I've done, from suspension to some engine parts. And really, most of that work was just neglect from the previous owners. There wasn't a lot of maintenance done at all, really. I mean, it seemed like they kept up with the oil, which I'm glad they did that. But nothing else, and it still held up okay. I mean, I didn't start having actual issues like the filter housing. That didn't go bad until I hit like 185,000 miles, right around there, give or take a few thousand. And then I've also done my water pump. I did that one right about 200,000 miles, I believe, maybe 202. So, it's not too bad, and I'm very aware. I'm glad I know this was in the winter when my water pump went out. My heater was acting weird, fluids were good, and so I had just done some servicing. I mean, I had a new thermostat put in from when the head gasket blew when I got it, because that thermostat went bad, which is what caused the gasket to blow when it overheated. So I had a new thermostat. I did a coolant flush on this thing, and everything was good. And so I was wondering about the water pump, given the miles that I have, and went and got one, took off the old one, and sure enough, it was pretty weak. So we replaced it with a new one, and it's been good. I mean, about almost 8,000 miles ago now. And but I mean, I've on this truck total, I've done, again, a bunch of suspension stuff to the engine. As far as suspension, just maintenance, shocks, ball joints and tie rods. I actually did those. I've seen on some YouTube channels some guys who own shops, like Dave's Auto Service, I believe is the name of his channel. He said that apparently Rams are known for some of their suspension components to wear out earlier than other brands. I wasn't aware of that for a while, and so, but I replaced the ball joints and tie rods. It's been pretty good. Haven't had any issues. This is a two-wheel drive, by the way, rear wheel, so I only did the front. But ball joints, shocks, brakes, obviously. As far as the engine, it's been just some maintenance, which would be timing belt, or excuse me, not timing belt, the serpentine belt, water pump, the filter housing, the rocker arms, the thermostat, I have transmission fluid change, oil changes. I mean, really, I for a while I was catching up. I had some weird issues too, and one thing that was from the previous owner, I don't know if it was something that they did or they took it somewhere, but what happened was I was having this issue. It was an electrical issue where every time, it took me a while to notice, because it's like it was building up gradually from when I got the truck. When I would hit bumps, or if it were sensitive enough, I could even tug on a wire harness under the hood that led to the ECU, and it would throw it in a limp mode. And so what would happen was I would hit a bump, and the computer, the ECU, would actually shake, and so it would lose, I guess, some sort of voltage or ground or something. I'm not exactly sure, but I saw the computer, and for this truck in particular, it's on the passenger side towards like kind of against the firewall, and whoever was messing with that before, they had taken it off or something, I don't know what, but when they were trying to put it back on, they didn't put it on right, and so it was loose, it was off its place. And so I had that issue though for a long time. I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. I tried all kinds of stuff. I think I remember trying I actually replaced in that process the throttle control unit, because that's what my truck was also telling me. I would get some codes for that, but throttle control, I tried to clear the battery, or excuse me, disconnect to the negative and clear the codes like that, use a code reader, and I would look for wires and see if there's anything frayed or maybe giving out. An O2 sensor, I saw a little cut in one of the wires, and so that obviously it didn't happen to be the case, but I replaced it anyways just because I saw it was kind of damaged. But at the end of the day, out of all these things that I was doing, it was that computer that was loose, and so once I tightened that, it was good to go. But all these things were happening at once. When I hit about 105 or 185,000 miles, that was around October of 2023, and that's when pretty much soon after that, filter housing went bad. So I replaced the filter housing, the NOx sensors. I didn't mess with the thermostat, but I did the filter housing, NOx sensors, oil pressure sensor, which also came with the housing, the new housing. And I got a full aluminum one. I'd done the shocks, I did the U-joints, the tie rods. I did transmission service, fluid service. I did but I was just the computer issue that I was having, and soon after that computer issue, I had another one. There's another sensor, and this one I actually wasn't there for. I went out of town, and I left my dad my truck, and I took his truck. I went to California with some friends, and so I was hauling a camper. So he lent me his truck, and he kept mine while I was out of town. And he said that, first of all, the issue that I was having was similar to that other electric issue that I had. After a while of my truck being on, the engine would read hot, and because it read really hot, and I read it on the scanner, it was, I think, about 440 degrees is what it was reading. It wasn't actually that hot, but because it read that hot, it would kick the fan in high speed, and it had the little red lightning bolt light that was lighting up, and nothing was wrong, at least mechanically speaking, and I knew that. And so I tried to not drive it as much as I could, but I wasn't able to work on it for a while. But then what we tried doing, my dad and I, we went back under to the filter housing, and we checked the engine coolant temperature sensor. Apparently those sensors, this is what my dad deduced. Again, I wasn't personally there for this, but he did fix the issue. Apparently the temperature sensor on the filter housing is not for coolant, at least it's what it seems, although they're labeled engine coolant temperature sensors. But we checked it, we tested the voltages, we tried a few different ones, and nothing. I mean, they were all fine, everything was okay, so we were unsure. So while my dad was, when I went to California, my dad said he started taking apart the wire harness and following them and seeing if he could find any damage. And eventually, he ended up finding another sensor, which was on the driver's side of the engine underneath, like kind of I think behind the AC compressor and a little bit upwards, roughly in that area. I didn't see this myself, so I can't describe exactly. But I think if I remember right, the wires on that sensor were cut, and I believe that is his assumption was the correct temperature sensor for the coolant. And so, and again, when I was having this issue, the throttle control service light would turn on. I also got codes for cooling system performance and all these things. And so, again, I had already changed water pump, new coolant, new belt, thermostats new filter housing. So it's like I'm positive nothing's actually wrong, nothing's actually getting hot. But it did cause those codes to turn on, and then when it would turn on, my temperature gauge would just drop. It would read hot, like 400 plus degrees, and then when that happened, temperature gauge would drop, digital and the analog, and then the fan would kick on a high speed. And so my dad ended up finding that temperature sensor, and it had torn wires, so he rewired it, and it's been good. That fixed the issue. I haven't had that since. So, but all these things were just happening in a short amount of time, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, I really was fed up with this truck for a second there. I was wondering if I could just get rid of it and turn it back in, but then at the same time, it's, you know, it's not worth much given its miles, and so I don't want to still pay for the truck and not have it. So it's like, you know, I'm just keep it and fix it, just deal with it. But everything's good other than right now. Again, my check engine light is on, saying the knock sensors give me those codes PO325, and other than that, I mean, power still feels good, transmission feels good, gas mileage is good. Done a bunch of servicing on this. I'm gonna do the last rocker arms. I'm gonna do all of them, just reset them, and so otherwise, man, I wrote a list of all these things that were cheap parts, lack of maintenance, and just wear and tear. And honestly, well, all of those combined on me, given the miles and its age, its year. Another cheap part, or at least I think, are the actuators. My blend door actuator in particular went bad. It still worked, but it was the teeth in there were broken, and so when I would switch to recirculate in fresh air, it would knock really nasty, super loud. It was horrible, and that turned out not well. I got the actuator replaced. It took forever to get it done, and then it started messing with my AC system for some reason. So I forgot exactly what happened. I think the temperature, I think it wouldn't get cold, if I remember right. So yeah, and also speaking of AC, I did just replace my AC compressor. That went bad. So most of these things went bad roughly around, on average, 200,000 miles, which again was filter housing, water pump, AC compressor, blend door actuator, and I think I'm forgetting one. The thermostats actually go bad right away. I actually looked at mine. It's already breaking on the sides, so I want my aluminum one. Again, I had ordered it. It came in. Actually, well, my dad ordered it for me, and we looked at it. It didn't fit, so we had to return it. So I gotta get a new one. But anyways, yeah, there's a few parts that were pretty poorly made. On the bright side, you can replace a lot, like the filter housing and the thermostats. Those you can get the aluminum ones. So I suggest, if you have this truck and you have the V6 Pentastars and you have the plastics of those parts, I'd say swap. I mean, if you have the time, personally, I'd probably just swap them out right away just to get it done. But you don't have to. They will last you a decent while. The thermostat, though, is kind of scary. I don't know if the thermostat was ever replaced prior to me getting this truck. I would imagine so, because the one I got, again, it's actually, this is the third thermostat since I've had it, and this is the plastic one. Went bad when I bought the truck. That was number one, so they put the new one in. And then I was, I think when I was replacing the water pump, I can't quite remember, I took off the thermostat again to look at it when I had all the fluid drained, and so it broke already, and that was 40,000 miles of owning my truck with apparently a new thermostat. Maybe those guys, I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna assume that was the second one. So now I'm currently on the third thermostat, all been plastic. So I need that aluminum one, and I've seen a lot of, or a few videos for that. So those cheap parts that are pretty vital to your engine, you can swap out for some aluminum made ones. So highly would recommend that. But otherwise, this truck has been pretty solid. Once I got everything stabilized, I got all the maintenance done, I got the wear and tears taken care of, and then the cheap parts, I got those replaced. You know, it's really not that bad. I'm very impressed with this truck. It still starts good, still runs good, shifts well. I really can't complain. it was just overwhelming for a while to have to do all these things at once. But once I wrote everything down and considered its age and its mileage, you know, it's like, okay, I was able to take it down to just cheap parts that I would worry about. Otherwise, this thing has been pretty freaking reliable. I've taken a few trips with it. I've been working a lot, so I haven't been able to take a lot of trips, but I do want to take more. I am going to tow right now. But it's a pretty great truck, super comfortable. I mean, and the 2014 models, the 4th generation, I love these trucks. I love their models. The 5th ones, I've been a little iffy with. They're growing on me more. I really like the grills and their new bumpers and the headlights. The fronts, I should just say. The doors of the new Rams, I feel look kind of, I don't know, they look similar to the Chevys and GMCs, their new generation. A little chunky, maybe, a little wide. And I guess if they're bigger, I haven't been in a new Ram. I've been in the new generations of the Chevys, and you know, they're very spacious for sure. So I imagine that's where a lot of that design came into play, you know, as they get newer. But I mean, this truck though is still holding up. I mean, the suspension is great. They had the air ride suspension, I think, starting with this generation, so it's super smooth. It's fairly quiet in here. I haven't measured it or anything. I've seen videos of guys where they measure the new trucks, how loud it is. I don't know how loud this one is, but it's pretty comfortable, man. I have to say, I am going to do some more upgrades on it. I put in a new radio. Oh, that was another thing. The original Uconnect system went bad, and so it was the Bluetooth though that went out. The Bluetooth in the Sirius XM just stopped working. Only the FM radio and AM radio worked. That was it. It was so random, and I noticed the Bluetooth would cut out a lot. And I tried to research it and see if, you know, I had any updates or maybe just resetting it. I did do the battery. I found there's a fuse for the Bluetooth radio that's separate from the fuse box. It's kind of, I don't see the point of that in my opinion. But then there's also the radio connections. I tried all 3 of those, and the Bluetooth never came back on. So after about a month of that, figured, all right, I'll just get a new one. So my girlfriend actually bought me a new one for my birthday. It's Android Auto. It's about a 9-inch screen. I'd show it, but I'm driving at the moment. I'll put it maybe at the end. I'll pause when I'm parked. But anyways, yeah, so I guess as a recap, I mean, reliable truck. It's got a few cheap parts. Again, thermostat, oil filter housing. Oh, shit. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Oil filter housing, thermostat, actuators, and radio. I'd say those were the cheap parts. The important ones are the thermostat and oil filter housing. Those are the important ones. I think there's something else I'm forgetting though that were originally plastic, and I can't remember. But anyways, other than those 2, as far as the engine goes, I would just be careful if you ever have one of these engines. And it doesn't matter if it's a Ram, it could be a Ram, a Jeep, Chrysler minivan, Dodge Chargers, and all that. Like, they all have the same engines and the same parts. I don't know if they've changed those, the newer they've gotten, if they've put aluminum in those. I'm not sure. But I would say look into that. But that's kind of the only drawback with these engines, at least with this era of the Rams and, well, Chrysler products. So those, but otherwise just been maintenance, wear and tear, no big deal. And then the interior stuff, the actuator and the radio, you know, it's been pretty solid. I love this truck. It's very comfortable, great on gas, 8-speed V6. It's got the dual overhead cams, VVT. It's great. I love this truck. It's still gorgeous. I have the full blackout edition, black rims and everything. And so, yeah, I really love this truck. And I definitely want to keep it for a while. See how long I can go. You know, maybe if I hit a new milestone like 250K, I'll make another video and just update how it's going. But just wanted to make a review. Hope you guys found this useful. Leave some comments, likes, whatever you want to do. Not really worried about it. It's my first video. But yeah, all right. Thanks for watching.